Welcome to the online lecture series of mechanical measurements. I am Mohammad Mansoor, Department of Mechanical Engineering, and I will be the course coordinator for the subject called as mechanical measurements. So the subject code is 15ME333T. So there are 6 units in this particular subject. So the unit 1 is mechanical instruments, which is for 30 marks. The second unit is transducers and strain gauges for 30 marks. The third unit is measurements of force, torque and pressure for 20 marks. Fourth unit is applied mechanical measurements for 25 marks. Fifth unit is miscellaneous measurements for 15 marks. And sixth unit is limits, fits, tolerances and testing of geometric dimensions for 25 marks. And the paper will be for 100 marks. So on successful completion of the course, you'll be able to know the terms of the measurements and understands the principles of operations of an instrument. Choose suitable measuring instruments for a particular application and apply ethical principles while measuring the dimensions. Appreciate measurements of a strain by using a basic strain gauges and hence verify the stress induced and applications of transducers in mechanical engineering applications for sustainable development. Apply the principles of instrumentations for transducers and measurement of non-electrical parameters like temperature, pressure, flow, speed, force, and stresses in mechanical engineering applications for sustainable development. Apply the principle of miscellaneous measurements, for example, humidity, density, level, and blood pressure. Applying the principles of limits, fits, tolerances, and analyze the process alignment testing of machine tools for machining field, manufacturing field. Let us see now which unit, what are these units consists of. The first unit, measuring instruments, we have a definitions, methods of measurement, significance, terms applicable to measuring instruments like precision, accuracy, sensitivity, and repeatability, range, threshold, hysteresis, and calibrations. The errors in measurements, there are two types of errors in measurements, systematic and random error. And then measuring instruments, factors in selecting the measuring instruments. Then thread measurements by bench micrometer, thread gauge micrometer. The angle measurements by bevel protractor, sine bar, gauges, plain gauge, plug gauge, snap gauge, and ring gauge. Surface finish measurements, surface finish by tally surface tester, coordinating measuring machines. In the second unit, you have transducer concepts, characteristics transducer selecting factors, classification of transducers, activating mechanisms. Then we will be able to study voltage and current generator analog transducers and the different types of transducers like piezoelectric transducers. Strain measurements, we have strain gauges and its classification, berry type mechanical strain gauge and optical strain gauges. Then we'll learn the mounting of strain gauges. There are two types, strain gauge rosette 2 or 3 elements, and we'll study the gauge factor. In the third unit, we have force measuring devices like spring balance, proving ring, strain gauge load cell. Then you have torque measuring devices, Prony brake and hydraulic dynamometer. And at last, we'll study pressure measuring devices, diaphragm type pressure gauge, Borden type pressure gauge, McLeod gauge, their construction, working and applications. In the fourth unit, called as Applied Mechanical Measurements, we will learn about the speed measurements. the classifications of tachometers, working principles and constructions, working of revolution counters and eddy current tachometers. Then displacement measurements, working principle and construction, and working of linear variable displacement transform. Then we have force measurements, working principle and construction, that is rotometer. Then we have temperature measurements, that is principle and constructions, working of resistance thermometer and optical pyrometer. And at last we'll study the thermocouples. In the fifth unit, we have miscellaneous measurements. We'll do the miscellaneous measurements. Humidity measurements, constructions and working of hair hygrometer, then density measurements, measurements of density using hydrometer. Liquid level measurements, by sight glass, float gauge. Then we'll study the sphygmomanometer. In the sixth unit, we'll study all about the limits, fits and tolerances and testing of geometrical dimensions. We'll study interchangeability, selective assembly, basic definitions, graphical illustrations of limits and tolerances, fits classifications. Then we have system of fits, in which whole basis system and sacrificial system will study. Then we have system of tolerances. There are two types, unilateral systems and bilateral systems. In the machine tool alignment testing, checking parallelism, straightness and runout. And alignment testing machine tools during erection as per SI standard procedure. So these are all the syllabus for your mechanical measurement subject. Thank you.